Right then, back onto the Amarok. Some interesting upgrades this time, not just tuning it and messing about. That's sort of where most people are going to go, but this is the next stage, or the next two stages, because I've been on daddy duties this morning and the plans changed slightly because the turbo that should have been here earlier in the week, so we changed plans, has just come this morning just as we're about to put it all back together, so it's worked out pretty good. But before we get to the turbo, you'll see these struts that these are from Coleman Ross. They're wanting to supply pretty much everything for Amaroks, so they sent us these to try, test fit, see if it works. Seems to be holding bonnet up at the minute. There's a few bits there, I'm not going to slam it all the way down. It don't completely take it up, but we're having to use this oil thing, which Owen probably couldn't reach and lift up that high, so it's worked out alright for it, whether he can reach bonnet when it's there. But they've also sent us so they've always got this as from factory, sort of cable to stop it falling too far to hold it down, but this makes it come down nice so it won't just fall, which is good. Yeah, that's that. So, obviously even more exciting stuff. So if you look here, this is the turbo that's come off this car. So that, I don't know if you can get in and see it, that's a GTD 2060 VZ, which these have got a extended tip-up compressor wheel as well, so they are a little bit bigger than that, but they are quite small on the inducer. Nice 10-blade wheel, billet as well, so that's pretty good. But this is what's limited now. We're just over 300 horsepower. It's where we expect it to be. 300, 310 maybe on A4s, A5s with this sort of turbo. That's where you're going to be stuck. The turbine's quite small. So what we propose to do this morning, we'll put the GTD 28 on, which has got it's 2872 on this one, and that's got an extended tip on it as well, so this is quite a lot larger. That's why the EGT sensor's screwed into it, because sorry, we were just about to put it on, and the postman finally came with this turbo. So this is a little bit different to this, and this is the upgrade from the 300 horsepower cars. So this is, but not all of them got it. This is what the problem is as well. But this, it didn't say it on the nameplate, but this is a GTD 2263. So it's bigger turbine and a bigger compressor wheel than this. It's not tons bigger, quite a lot bigger on the inducer of the turbine, but not tons bigger on the exducer. So we are still going to be limited. I think this is not going to do much more than 330 horsepower, so it's not a massive upgrade. But if you've already got one of these that's failed, this is the one you want. So there are some complications to fitting this, which we'll list these in the raw form on the website just as they come. But I think we're probably going to have to do some of these mods for people before we send them out, so it might have been a bit more expensive than just buying one off us or off the internet and then just fitting it. And that's because, if you look, these actuators are just totally different. They work differently. I believe, from what I'm told, we can't even, because this is a 6, that's got, it says 6 pins, there's only 5 in there, and this is just a 5 pin. You can't even just change the plugs because they work a bit differently as well. I think one's all effect and one's CAN bus. But we're not going to get into that anyway. It's not worth trouble on a car as new as this. So what we're going to do is put this actuator onto this turbo, and then that one goes away. But one interesting thing about these turbos as well, in factory form, they've got a speed sensor. So this plugs into the ECU, and this will be constantly varying the vane angle to control the turbo speed. There'll be some limits, and they've also got water-cooled compressor cover as well. So they've both got water-cooled centre sections, but this has got a water-cooled compressor cover, which I don't think we're going to hook up, because that's only because of the cars that these are fitted to. have got loads more exhaust gas recirculation going into the comp side of the turbo as well, the low pressure stuff. So I'm not too worried about that. But these speed sensors are interesting. Maybe this is something that we can retrofit onto some other turbos and pull some factory calibrations out of the ECUs on the cars that these come on, but we'll see about that later on. So at the moment in time, we're going to get this whacked on. Everything else should fit nice, all the emissions equipment will all be able to go back on. I think we'll leave the DPF delete on for now, then we'll swap back to the DPF, and then when we go to this turbo, we'll see how we get on with that one, what we can do and what we can't do. So we'll leave it trolling, let him get ripped in, and should be some more power soon. So, Owen finally got the turbo on. It weren't too bad, to be honest. A bit easier than like the turbo on our A5, because that's got spline bits holding, 3 spline bolts holding each side of the turbo, and these have just got one V-band. So as long as the V-bands are orientated all right, you can get in at them. So he's whipped it off, got it back on, and obviously this turbo is the water-cooled version of the GTD 2060. Or it was, but this 2263 has got the water-cooled compressor, which we talked about. We've not hooked that portion of it up, which this turbo is what's on all the brand new, I think they're 340 horsepower or something like that. So they push quite hard as standard. They've got a bit of a different injection system on them. But that also means they're going to be generating a bit more heat. So on those, they've got the water-cooled compressor house as well. I don't think we need it. I don't think we're going to have any problems. I think it's just an extra little bit of efficiency as well as cooling. So we just leave that blanked off. It's not a big deal. And then they've got the turbo speed sensor, which we've just tied up out of way, which is a nice little thing. I can't get to twist it round. You can just see it, Garrett, and the speed sensor. So that's just tied out of the way. Ignore this EMP pipe. That's just temporary while we run it on dyno just to see what it's doing. But if you do buy one of these turbos off us, we'll obviously try and make sure we've got an actuator on there for you in the right orientation, and we've modified it to fit and flow test it and everything. But you will have to be very, very careful with the tuning. We've had tons of fun working with this. It was way more than we should have done for a mild upgrade. But we have figured out there's a lot of weird stuff goes on with the airflow management on these engines. But if you buy one of these turbos and your tuner starts having some problems, we'll try and help out. But I would advise, if possible, to run a EMP, which you can tap it into the turbo somewhere. We've just tapped it into this EGR pipe here. But you can tap it in wherever. But you get some very strange behaviour if you're not careful, and you're probably not going to see it in the boost pressure. And if you're not running it on a dyno, you'd not see it either. But it does some very weird stuff, especially at upper RPMs, because we are asking for a lot more airflow than this MAF normally sees. It's already an 88mm, but you're asking for more than what the maps have all got defined in them, so it starts doing some weird stuff. So hopefully we don't have any problems with them, but we'll see. Obviously, the next step for this, turbo-wise, is the 28 turbo, but let's see what power we've got now, and then we'll talk about what we're hoping for. So 237 is what it did standard. When we first ran it, a little bit down because obviously the DPF weren't the clearest. 305 is the best that we got after we'd removed the DPF with the standard turbo. And then what we've just got now is a 352, which a lot of the gain is at the upper RPM. So if you're revving it, you're going to feel it. If you're just towing and doing what you only change up at 2.5, 3,000 RPM, you're not going to see a huge gain there. So it depends what use you're going to do. If you're just literally towing a trailer and you never put your foot flat down, especially at upper RPM, this is probably not going to be a massive improvement. I do believe, looking at the lambda values and stuff, this turbo is definitely delivering a lot more air. So if you wanted to sort of run 300 horsepower, but
in a detuned, with a bigger turbo, sort of a detuned state, it'd be a lot cooler. So if you are putting your foot flat down, you're getting a lot higher rev range before you get to where you want to get. This big turbo is probably one that I'd have on there. So it depends what use case you've got. Like we had a guy in Australia driving through, I can't remember the exact island, Danny will put a picture of it in or whatever and label it up. But he was driving for 4 and 5 hours at a time, basically bogged down in not underwater, but through water. And yeah, 4 hours full throttle, towing a boat on a trailer. So it's some of these trucks are getting used properly. Some of them are just, like I imagine this one, I'm not 100% sure, so the owner will probably correct me if I'm wrong, but it'll probably just be a glorified car. So you can tune them a little bit differently and get a bit more out of them. But anyway, so really happy with the results it's got. I do think this turbo is capable of more at the expense of probably some reliability, but that's not what we're trying to achieve with this. We're trying to get realistic goals. Could probably gain a little bit more torque if we weren't too bothered about getting some EGTs there, but you're not going to make it spool as good as the standard turbo because that's a bit smaller. So yeah, the next thing we're going to do with this, at least for this video, is going to be road test it, see how it drives. It's been a while since I last drove it, so it probably feels pretty good. And then we need to fit the water injection. After that, we'll then have a little dyno session of this turbo water injection, and then we've got the GTD 28 to go on there. Fingers crossed we're going to break 400 horsepower with that. Might have to use a bit of meth to get past there, I'm not too sure because the injectors are not completely stretched at the minute, but it wouldn't hurt if they were a little bit bigger. So we'll see what we can do, get it off, road test, and we'll go from there. So, right in the Amarok now. So we've got the 2263 turbo on, 352 horsepower, knocking on 600 foot-pound of torque, so should drive good. We're still, every time we seem to mess about with engine, we need to have to mess about with gearbox as well, which is a bit annoying. It doesn't seem like we've quite got it exactly how we want it, but we're making progress with everything. So this is the first time I've driven it with this turbo on. I'll have a little gentle drive, but steady away, and then we'll try and do a launch and see what it can do. If you're wondering what this is, that's the exhaust manifold pressure gauge, so just something to keep an eye on while we're driving it normal. Like you can see, even just cruising, you get up to sort of 2.5, 3 bar. That's nice, that. But these modern engines run ridiculous EMPs to try and keep the turbo spooled, and obviously it's all emissions related. You want to keep the back pressure up, and then you've got a nice amount of EGR available to push into the inlet manifolds. Obviously, people that have watched us previous videos, the lowest EMPs the better for power, but when it comes to efficiency and your emission stuff, the lowest not always best. So they're looking at two different things. Which this is a factory turbo that is designed for a car with emissions, so rather, pardon me, they'd rather have it that way. But anyway, digress. So hopefully the 28's lower, that's the main thing. The 28 on this engine should run a lot less EMPs because we've not got as much worries about the emissions side of things. Even if you retain them, it'll still work, it just won't work as good as the factory wants it to. But anyway, so feels like it drives pretty good, nothing to worry about, no weird dead spots or not like that. Oil temps getting up there nice, so we should be ready to get on. I'm just easing into the throttle, not doing anything too crazy. windy today, very windy today. The EMPs went, you know, on the throttle. So you can really see with the EMPs on this that the highest sort of in the zones, in the normal driving zones, so when you're cruising around, when the emissions equipment should be doing its thing, when you're routing, they go down. It's obviously the fuel spool in the turbo around and the vane angle, so looks like I've got a pretty good handle on things. Yeah, that drive's really nice. Obviously zero smoke out the back, which is exactly what we wanted. Just easing to throttle. Nice. That is, for a big bus, I was driving some pretty quick cars yesterday, and that's up way with them. Definitely up there with them. About 5.7 to 60. It's definitely the quickest we've done. Really happy with that. Gearbox tune works miles better, changing up a little bit later, which is what we wanted. Changes gear a lot quicker. The launch control seems to be working pretty good. Take it out off-road mode. So yeah, really happy with that. This is not a slow car. Nobody would be disappointed with this. Obviously it's not a racing car by any stretch, but definitely quick enough. So I think that's probably the end of this video, and on to the next one. Hopefully we're going to have the water injection on there soon, and then we'll be ready for the 28 turbo. So anything you think you want to buy for this car, for your Amarok that's on this car, check in the description, and if you're going to ask anything, drop it in comments. Cheers.